Hello everyone and welcome back to Random Act of Squirrel. Today is Act 23, Acts of Clatter and Discord. Hangin with Master Splinter at the Rayland Baxter show, a review. So today's kind of a fun one because last night Rayland Baxter, and I'll tell you a little more about who he is, was coming through town, and I went to the Varsity Theater and I got 2 tickets, one for me and one for my father, of whom we will dub Master Splinter. I have a second thought. We'll see what I discuss later towards the end of this. That's why he gets to be Master Splinter, but he's from now on. If you were watching it, Dad, you are now either Master Splinter or Splinter. Well, you do have 4 turtles, so maybe that's part of it. But there's other stuff too. So I had the honor, which I don't know how many people get to do. I went to a show. The singer-songwriter guy's name is Rayland Baxter, and I got to go with my father. And that's kind of a cool experience because when I talk to other people about the relationship with their father and things like that, they don't get to have those experiences. So that's kind of a cool moment. Anytime I can find music that I like and he likes, and it kind of meshes a little bit, we spend that time together. It's kind of cool. So he came over yesterday, crashed, we went to church, and then he went home after church to go hang out with his wife, my mother. Here we go. It's going to be kind of, I don't know, this might be more personal than I planned on, but we'll find out. So, Rayland Baxter is a considered alternative country Americana artist. He has 5 albums out, 2 EPs. The first one's 2013, 2015 called Feathers and Fishhooks. The second one's called Imaginary Man. In 2018, he kind of had at least the album I became aware of, and that was called Wide Awake. He has something with Mac Miller, and I know enough about Mac Miller getting in trouble. I know he's a rapper. He has a very good had a very devout following. I know he died in the last couple of years, and kind of the Buddy Holly thing where he has a very cult following because he died kind of at the top of his game. And then in 2022, the most recent album, which he's touring on now, is called If I Were a Butterfly. The opening act was a group called Flight, and that is spelled this way. We'll write his name down too. I think you've seen it already, but opener is, there you go. So the main guy, that's how you spell him, and then the opening band is called Flight. And my dad thought the best way to describe him sound-wise, Master Splinter thought it was like almost Simon and Garfunkel as far as really light indie folk, very melodic rhythms, very soulful kind of stuff, a lot of pensive kind of lyrics, that sort of thing. It was very quiet, it's very pretty, and I'll be honest, very soulful, but definitely not my kind of thing. But they were very good at what they did. They have 3 albums out so far, a couple EPs. They actually came over from England, so that was kind of cool. I understood the lyrics a little bit more than he did, but maybe it's because I've listened to more of that kind of music from England, so I just got the lyrics better. The harmony was fantastic. One of the things that was interesting about their performance versus normal stuff was just because of cost of travel and visas and all that kind of stuff. The 2 main singer-songwriter guys, they were traveling solo and performing most of the songs all acoustic, and I guess this was the last show before they went to Chicago, and they're going to meet up with their whole band and then put on their full thing with like drums and extra guitars and that kind of stuff. They put out a pretty good show. I'd say about 30 to 45 minutes of music and covered a fair amount of their stuff. I liked it. It wasn't anything I would have ever come up with musically if I were to make a song, but it was very pretty. You can tell their hearts were into it, and they put on a decent show. I went, as stated, to go see Rayland Baxter. So this is, let's see here, that's Fishhooks, Um, so Imaginary Man, I Thank You Library, and then there's an EP based off of it called Soho, and then Wide Awake, which is his most popular one, or most famous one, I guess, and then the most recent one, which is this one. As far as shows go, because I go to quite a few shows, the crowd is really attentive, but it's probably one of the most docile crowds I've ever gone to. Everyone was really enjoying it. Part of it's the music, it's a lot of singer-songwriter stuff, and some of it can, well, his stuff doesn't sound like it breaks into it, but especially Flight sounds very much like sort of music you hear at a coffee house with like someone going up and looping lyrics and a guitar and that kind of thing. Whereas this, he has more punch into it and has a sense of humor. Sometimes it's a little bit edgier, so it's not always that way, but there was never any real rock out moments. The drummer was really cool because the way he just banged on the drum and just the loud percussive sounds he made, especially on the cymbals, was pretty powerful. Rayland did a wide array of stuff of all of his albums. I was surprised so much he played on especially the Wide Awake album. And then I realized that he played like 4 or 5 off of this, and then it was all over as far as what he played. He played for like an hour and a half or so. It was a really solid show. Here's some fun stuff also I found out. His dad is the son of Bucky Baxter, who played with Steve Earle and the Dukes, who's one of those earlier Americana, like 80s sort of alt-country Americana bands. And then in the 90s, he played with Bob Dylan. And he's enormously tall. Like, you can kind of tell in the pictures, but you see him on stage, he's 6'5", and you can definitely see it when you're looking at him. When we were listening to Flight, my dad immediately was listening to it, and Master Splinter was kind of like, this reminds me a lot of Simon and Garfunkel. I listened and thought that was a pretty good call. And then we listened to, on the way out when we were leaving the show, driving back to my place, he was thinking about it. He was like, this sounds a lot like Jim Croce. And I've always had a soft spot for Jim Croce because it's one of the greatest hits albums that my dad had that we would play constantly. He has this way of making sad songs just sound really personal. He also had some really kind of fun songs. Bad Bad Leroy Brown is one of the songs by Jim Croce. And then, I'm trying to think what else. There's a blues song, there's a song they call us Working the Car Wash Blues that I always loved because it talks about this guy who thinks he's a little bigger than he is, and he's stuck doing menial labor work kind of stuff. So I always been aware of Jim Croce. He's more cult, I suppose, at this point than anything else. But if you want to look up the name, look at his stuff, it's pretty cool. And Rayland Baxter had a lot of those elements, so I thought even now his face, Croce's face is a lot rougher, but the larger face, the mustache, that kind of stuff, and he rocks it really well. He has kind of 2 variations of songs. He had a lot of character songs, so like the ones I initially fell in love with off of Wide Awake were things like Casanova, where he talks about a guy who's playing women and now kind of that more conscious of what he's going to do. On this, there's also something called Halo Rocco, which he played that night, and it's about a guy who people misunderstand and think he's a lot cooler than he really is. This one, I think, I did some, as I was looking up data about him, I think his dad died, and he had a pretty good relationship with his dad. It's like there's a song on here called Buckwheat, which is about his dad. There's a couple other things that he talked about, like this one was about his dad and stuff like that. So I think he had a really good relationship with his dad. Rubber Band Man, I noticed at least had some YouTube stuff on it. There's another one called Billy Goat on it that's just strong, driving, heavy guitar stuff. If the one album was about sort of story songs, this one had that strong, punchy, garage, DIY kind of feel to it. He has a really interesting voice that can be almost kind of comic, shows a little bit of pain, but also it's really clear. And one of the things that Master Splinter liked was how he kept making sure that you could actually hear the vocals. And Splinter really liked the idea that when you slow down, the fact that he really put thoughts into his words and what he was expressing and all of that kind of stuff, which I entirely agree with. I don't think it was the best show I've ever been to, but it was definitely an enjoyable show. And going with Master Splinter was definitely awesome. This isn't the first show that we've done together, and that might be a whole nother video, in fact, that's brewing in the back of my head. I've gone to a couple other shows. I've actually gone to shows with my other fellow turtles and Master Splinter, and that was kind of a cool experience. And so I love being able to share those moments with him. It's not like he's going to die instantly or things like that, but anytime I can maybe squeeze a moment that you wouldn't always be able to think you'd have, it's kind of a cool thing. And I like going to shows where I can either invite people into music that I like or be driven by what they like. So like when my nephew, he wants to go to something, it may not always be exactly what he likes, but I like that it opens up my music world. Or even when Digital Girl got curious about something, be it a Solo Joe show or New Kids, or there was another adventure which might be a fun video, where we drove down to St. Louis and saw a bunch, like New Edition, a bunch of people. I like it how it can stretch my viewing experiences. I think the strangest show I ever got to go when I saw with someone was a band called Sabaton, and that's Sabaton, just if you want to look it up. And what they do is they tell great historical war stories to a metal beat, and it's crazy. I've never heard anything like them before. And what's even more humorous about that was the guy who invited me to that one. You wouldn't even expect. He was this very calm, very quiet guy, very dry humor. Grew up in a very kind of ultra religious house, and he didn't care much about media. And he found this band, and it was funny because you look at everyone else in there, and he didn't look like any of them. The show, I'm going to say this, I guess. If I got anything out of the show, I loved the show. I'm glad I got to see Rayland Baxter. It's not the top 10 shows I've ever seen before, but I definitely had a good time, especially had a good time being with Master Splinter. So what I'm going to try to say as a thought here, and it leads into the idea I'm poking at, and it's almost formed because I think I want to make another box. You should try to do this kind of stuff with your parents, if you can, or those elders, or those people you respect when you get the chance to build those memories, especially if like they're people you admired as a kid, and now you're an adult, so you can kind of reconnect with them like adult to adult again. It's a moment that I really treasure when I do get to have those moments with my dad, Master Splinter, because it's kind of cool. It's like I grew up, I get to be like you. And even though my situation isn't the same as him, but to be kind of like on the same footing, it feels kind of awesome. And I think that's the best part of the whole show. So I think I was going to go in having a good time no matter what. I just had a better time because we both enjoyed the music, and he enjoyed the lyrics, and he liked watching the drums, and he liked watching how they played. I will say one thing now, I just thought of this that made the show interesting, is normally you get to how a band is set, and you have the lead singer, and then the guitarists are behind them, and then the drummer's buried behind. One of the things that was interesting, if you go stage-wise here, you had the drummer, and then you had like the bass guitarist, and then you had another guitarist, and I forget what the name is, so I guess you can skewer me if you like on that one. And then you had the main guy, which is over here, and that was Rayland Baxter. And they never changed sides. So the whole time he was basically front left, and he almost kind of showcased the band more than he did himself, which I thought was really interesting. So has anybody gone to a show that's kind of cool? Maybe things that the side character part was more interesting. Maybe we got to go with the show, made the show better than it was, that kind of stuff. Go ahead and put it in the comments. If you like what you're seeing, hit the like button on this one. And also, if you're, as stated before, if you're enjoying this content, if it's something you have been coming to enjoy, go ahead and hit the subscribe. Thank you very much for your time. and have a good rest of your day.